It's Friday night. I got my buddy Will Allred on the screen. We've got the dynamic duo. We've got Charlie McElvey and Daniel Calvin. It's going to be a super heroic night, and we are going to get into things. Now, Will and I, when a legend passes, we like to say a word or two, usually in the comic industry, but we just lost Tony Bennett at 96. And Will was saying that he was going to sing 3 songs for us as we go out tonight. He didn't tell me which ones, but he's got his tea with him. So, Will, absolutely, we're going to give you your time, whatever the 3 songs are. When we get to that, we're all just going to wait and see. But Tony is a legend. If I make it to 96, I've probably been here 20 years too long, but God bless him. And we love the people that gave us entertainment for most of our lives. So
yes.
Tony, love you.
Yep.
Will, besides losing the guy you're going to sing, how has your week been?
It's been a pretty good week, sir. Pretty good week. Any week with comics is a good week, right?
Absolutely. And we've already got Joey Galvez in the chat. Joey, we're doing good.
Joey.
How goes it with you? As we usually start off, we do a little 30-second pitch on both campaigns that we have on the show. Charlie, if you could give us, like, if we were walking past your booth at, none of us are at San Diego Comic-Con, but if you were, and I was running past your booth to get to the movie stars that are not there, how would you get my attention about Spider Squirrel and Trash Panda?
Hey, so yeah, the Spider Squirrel Trash Panda Titan-sized special is out there now. It's a minimum of 80 pages, up to 100 pages. At no additional cost for backers and stretch goals. This comic is fun. It's fun, funny. It's a buddy cop action comedy in the vein of a Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. It brings back a good bit of that wahaha, superherodom. Takes nothing seriously. Really enjoy it. I love it. It's also pseudo autobiographical, where I put elements of my own life and history into the book. So some of the stories are certainly framed out wildly, but if you pared it down to the essence, you'd find my life in the books.
Are you Phoenix Jones, the real life superhero from in Seattle? I think
it's Seattle. Yeah, no, that is most definitely not me. I'm on the East Coast, so it's nice and late over here. But yeah, so that's the book in a nutshell. This it's brand new Spider Squirrel and Trash Panda adventure, 24 pages. So it's a full comic in the front, and in the back is in the vein of some of the 80-page giants of old, an anthological walk through the Zion universe. So you meet a bunch of new characters, including a new creation by Dean Haspel in this very volume. First appearances all over the place in these anthological stories. So lots to be had at a really good price. So check it out.
Awesome. And Daniel, same question. How would you get me into Rook and Knight? Or sorry, my eyes are bad. Rook. All of a sudden I said Rook B Knight. I'm like, is that a name? Rook and Knight. As I walk past your booth at San Diego Comic-Con next year, because we're all meeting there, right?
Hopefully, I said my brain right now is going maybe 2025 if I'm lucky, but like hopefully 2024 if I can pull it off, because I got plans already for probably my PTO. Nice. But anyway. Rook and Knight is the story of a father and son vigilante duo waging a brutal war on crime, except they're starting to fall apart at the seams as a team, and it could happen at the worst possible time because there's a drug running through the streets of New York, which is giving like low-level thugs some really high-grade superpowers. So, can their partnership survive? Can they survive? It's the expansion of what I'm calling the Libertyverse, which started in American Dreams, which is what my flagship book. So, I'm going to catch up here for everything that's been in that Libertyverse so far, including American Dreams and Night Wrath.
That's awesome. So we usually go into a deep dive, but we've got 2 creators who are building superhero universes. So and we're going to get to the deep dive, but let's kind of talk about your superhero writing origin story. What comic? I'll start with you, Daniel. What comic were you introduced to the superhero genre with? And if that's the one that grabbed you, great. After that, what's the one that grabbed you and by the throat and just said, this is what you're going to want to do?
So my dad had like this treasury of like comic book articles or something, and it had in it like the Golden Age Superman, Batman origin. So that was really the first little comics I read. And I was growing up, my mom was like, "No, he's not reading comics. He's reading real books." And it didn't help that I was reading by the age of 4, so I'm reading real books. But my dad had left over from when he was a kid in the '60s his Silver Age comics. So those were my first comics, like some Silver Age Justice League, some Silver Age Batman, and Superman. They were in condition when I got them. They're in terrible condition now. But those were my comics growing up, and a couple graphic novels here and there. But what really got me started was 2010. It was a blizzard. I was home from college. I'm bored out of my mind. I go, I'm going to write a Superman film script. And I discovered Comixology, and it just really snowballed from there. And
Okay.
that Comixology is really a relic, but now I have, all these comic
Hey, for a while there, Comixology was, the bee's knees. It was amazing.
It was wonderful.
The guys who created it, they were like, well, let's sell it. And they did. And I understand why. And the people who bought it were like, let's kill it. And they, and
they did.
So Charlie, what is the comic that you first read in the superhero genre, and the one that kind of took you and said, this is your deal?
It's funny. I actually had this. It's been a while since somebody asked me that on a podcast. It was DC Comics Presents. I forget the issue number. You can Google it. But the cover grabbed me, and my grandmother. Guys watching, I'm old, so I bought comics from 7-Eleven and pharmacies. So we were in a pharmacy, somewhere in Norfolk, Virginia, and my grandmother. I saw this comic book, and I had to have it because it was Skeletor pointing a power sword at Superman, charging Superman to attack He-Man. And Castle Grayskull's in the background. And I was like, oh. And so my grandmother bought it for me. It was, I don't know, it was expensive. It was like 60 cents.
Yeah.
And I traced over that book. I drew on the book. I read that thing over and over and over and over and over again. And I started making the daily jaunt so that was the one, right? Started making a daily jaunt back and forth to 7-Eleven on my own as like 7-8-year-old kid with, nickels in his pocket, and started buying DC Who's Who's. And I was just voraciously reading them. I have every one that I've ever purchased. Now the covers are half fallen off and stuff. I still have them downstairs in my library, but so that was it. I was sold. And so superhero comics was the thing.
Did you pause for you guys too?
Yeah, I think we lost Charlie for a second. Oh, he's back.
Okay.
But
son of a motherless goat. My kids are streaming. My son's gaming. That's what's going on. So
listen, we all decide if anybody freezes, we all decide that they just said the most amazing stuff. So
it was so profound. Your brain's gonna explode. So I can't. I'm sorry you guys missed it. But,
I'm both dumber and more intelligent for having heard that.
No, I was just saying I didn't get into other genres until ElfQuest, I think, was the first venture out into for comics anyway. So yeah.
So Will, I think you've said this on the thing, but what was the first comic that you ran into?
I think it was an issue of Green Lantern where he's falling out of the plane, and Green Arrow is about to shoot him an arrow. Because I'm old too, by the way. Yeah.
I don't think any of us are that young here, guys. I mean,
but
Dan's a kid.
I look like a kid. I don't know. I'm in my early 30s, so yeah.
Yeah, you're a kid. Okay, so 3 of us are old and one of us is not. Got it. 30. Oh my god.
Early 30s. I'm staring down 35. So.
So you Green Lantern. I got 3 DC boys here. I'm the only Marvel zombie of the group, huh? All right. Well, that's fair.
But it's funny because that was the first book I got, but I remember having. They used to do these thing called subscriptions. Children, you could order a comic and it would be delivered to you every month from the company. It was this wild thing.
Polybagged and everything. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, I had Avengers. I mean, I was reading the Claremont X-Men from about, like the 180s. And mostly I was mostly a Marvel zombie. Roger Stern, David, I can never pronounce, Michelini, however you pronounce his name. Mark Grunwald, those guys, those
Oh,
those journeymen, they knew how to tell a good solid story in 22 pages, and they got in and they got out. And I mean, I feel like they don't necessarily get the respect that they deserve. I mean, again, we have comics has Neil Gaiman, comics has Alan Moore, comics has all these, stellar, but these guys, they did it, and they did it well, and they did it for a very long time, and
dude, and you mentioned Grunwald. I was just on a show last week, and I was talking about Grunwald and Squadron Supreme, and I was like, oh my, that book was mind blowing to me, because your point before we got on the show, Kevin, about can superheroes do these things? Can they kill? Can they die? Can they whatever? And Squadron Supreme said, "Oh, hold my beer," right? I mean, it was so good.
Yeah, no,
absolutely.
We had the age old, and we'll just fill you in. Basically, Will asked what we felt was better of Alan Moore's work, V for Vendetta and Watchmen, and I strongly feel that they're both great, and that V for Vendetta is my favorite Alan Moore work ever. But what we were talking about was, for me, when V kicked Evie out in like issue 4, it's not a big spoiler if you haven't read it, because it's like issue 4. There's a lot happening after it. But I love Chris Claremont. X-Men 197, like the second appearance of Nimrod, is the one that just took me by the throat and just choked me and said, "You're going to be reading this until you die." And I was just like, "Oh, great!" And there's probably a reason Rogue's my favorite character, because that's the issue where she took Colossus and Nightcrawler's powers when they were knocked out to mess with Nimrod. So just brilliant stuff. I love Chris Claremont.
I can picture that cover, by the way. I know which one you're talking about.
So
John Romita Jr.
Was that a Romita? Okay, yeah, no, it is. Yes, because I reread it. You're right, absolutely. But I couldn't believe that the quote unquote protagonist of the story was so callous and different and mean to the little girl that she had saved. And I was just like, I didn't know comics could do that. And good night, buddy.
Yeah.
But
I'm just grabbing some stuff because I saw something that Joey said. I'm trying to see if I have the right cover.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we so Joey Galvez in the chat that says his is X-Men Volume 2, Number 1, Jim Lee's Connecting Covers. Cover C is the first book I ever purchased off the rack.
So maybe
Joey just said he barely hit 30. Got it. Okay.
So Joey, if you're here, is it this cover?
Yeah.
Cover
cover?
C. That was the one. That's cover E. That's D, I think.
Oh.
C has Colossus, Gambit, and Beast, or not Gambit, but Beast, and come on,
X,
Joey, it's your cover. Tell us.
Yeah. I feel like Beast and Professor X are on the same cover, but I'm not 100% sure.
I think Professor X is on A, but I don't remember. Yeah, it's been 30 years, Kevin. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I actually had the first one. So
First one.
First one. This one.
Yeah.
So
I've got
I
to find
found these in a randomly at a con I was tabling at, I think on Long Island, and this had like really badly falling apart backboard. So a couple years ago, during COVID, I'm like, I'm getting these things freshly bagged and board before this actually gets damaged. And I'm a huge Jim Lee fan, so these are my copies of that. I also have randomly, and people know I'm not a big fan of Punisher, but being a fan of Jim Lee, I got not only Punishers, but right here, I found randomly like the first trade from Punisher War Journal, the Wolverine crossover.
So Dan, I was a Alpha Flight fan as a kid, and I read every issue from start to finish. I bought from the first issue. And then I was like, oh, these guys showed up before, and I went and bought it. And I found the back issues for like $5 at the time. So it was X-Men 120 and 118, 121. I don't remember the numbers now, but anyway, so you appreciate this because I think it was Alpha Flight 51 was Jim Lee's first published Marvel work ever.
Right.
Wow.
And I happened to just buy it for 75 cents because it was on the rack. But I still have that.
It's so there's something magical about Marvel in the early to mid '80s. You had Walter Simonson on Thor. You had John Byrne on Fantastic Four.
Or
You
Friends
had,
on Thor. Yeah.
Frank Miller on Daredevil.
Yes.
You had Claremont and lots of different artists on X-Men. I mean, it's just this. It's just such a great period that I don't know that they've ever really hit again. Something because there's so much going on right there.
Somebody I just saw on Twitter was commenting about how Marvel used to be. I won't get back to Kevin's original point.
No,
but we're having a great conversation.
This is great. As long as we make sure and actually talk about your campaigns.
We do want to talk about your campaigns at some point, yes.
Because we do want to make sure people know you're making your comics. But this is awesome.
But yeah, no. Someone was commenting on Twitter today about how Marvel used to be the house of ideas, but here we are. SDCC. One of the big announcements is, we have Rob Liefeld on 2 more books, and it's like. Right. So we were trying to recapture this flame from 30 years ago and this is not a knock on Liefeld. It's really a comment on Marvel is like, what happened? And I think it's what you're asking, Kevin, is what happened? Because it used to be the house of ideas. Dude, Punisher War Journal, when JR did that cover and there was like a bullet holes and stuff, I was like, holy biscuits, I gotta have 5 copies of that just because I gotta have 5. And I wasn't even a collector, I was a reader. But it made me a collector, and there were just so many, to your point, so many great stories. Friends and those guys put out that Thor issue, which introduced the new Warriors, and next thing you know, you have Fabian Aichiza and Mark Bagley, and we have one of the greatest teen superheroes of all time, and I am including like Legion of Superheroes and Teen Titans and X-Men in that conversation. Mm-hmm. One of the greatest, and yet that was introduced in 89, 90? And it was that same era you're talking about, and since then I feel like, and maybe it was the Image break that broke them, but I feel like Marvel's really and again, I'm not trying to be overly critical, but I think they've kind of fallen off a little bit in terms of they're just an IP farm that's just throwing stuff out there, and they keep rehashing the same things over and over again. My God, how many Spider-Men do we have? And I love a lot of them, but I don't know. That's a great question, though. I wonder, what happened, though.
If I had to guess, it's Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee and, Silvestri taking all of McFarlane, like the superstar artists, basically all leaving at once. And I don't think Marvel ever wanted any artists to have that much power ever again. So it shifted over to the writing side. I mean, we're all writers, but, no writer.
Visual medium.
It's a visual medium.
It is 100%.
You want your superstars to be artists, and you want your workhorses that are just going to sit down and make sure that the artists have something to do. Your writers, and you can kind of coast for a while when you've got a you said Daredevil. I'm blanking on his name. He just went to DC, but there was a while there where he was writing Avengers, Ultimate Spider, and Bendis. They just kind of were like, hey, and what I've always said about personally, Brian Bendis has the ability to write 3 great comics a month, and he chooses to write 1 great comic, 2 okay comics, and 4 bad comics a month. And you just need to make sure that you're either reading Daredevil or Ultimate Spider-Man, because those are going to be his 2 great ones. Don't worry about the others. But they coasted on having a writer doing 6, 7, 8 books, and maybe having a good artist here and there is my guess. But I don't know. Joe Quesada never really asked my opinion one way or the other. So
and I will point out another issue. There was also Perlmutter, who was probably his parents probably didn't,
because the bankruptcy happened. Just after, was that early 90s, like 90, 91?
Mid-90s, late 90s, with the Hero World's collapse.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
No,
I was reading about that recently because I was a kid during that time, so it's like I'm having to learn this, post facto, not against something I unfortunately lived through.
We should tell Dan about this book that came out periodically called Wizard. That was really cool.
I'm aware, Wizard.
I'm just messing with you, dude. We're gonna ride this whole young guy thing all night because you're the You're the 25%er. So,
Well, we are talking about some billion-dollar companies and multi-million-dollar IPs. Let's start talking about some Kickstarters that could grow into those, possibly in the future. All right, you're Charlie. You're pointing, so let's go to Spider Squirrel and Trash Panda first. I'm going to pull up the page. So you talked about this kind of a fun-loving. I love Booster Gold and Blue Beetle are just like such fun together. Where did your superhero universe start with them, or did you start elsewhere and they become the characters you like to play with?
No, you're a great host. That's a great question. No, they weren't the first ones that I published. So, gosh, it was 2007. I did a. Gosh, man, was it that long ago? Holy crap. Anyway, one of my first Kickstarters ever was a long time ago. Let's just say that. And it was not actually for a comic book. It was for a gaming supplement. And I got it funded. And here's what happened. So I started writing this superhero team story. I wanted to do my Avengers, X-Men story. The thing, right? Every one of us who is into superheroes really wants to write. And so I started writing this story, and I was like, okay, this is cool. I got art. I had Kevin Sharp and I had Andy Smith. These, industry professionals. I've known Andy Smith for holy biscuits, close to 30 years now. Met him in '97.
Almost Daniel's whole life.
I was just thinking that. I told you those jokes aren't going away, Dan. And it's not just me either. So
we kid because you really make us feel bad about ourselves.
We kid because you are one. No, I'm just.
I figured that the D&D group I was in, I was the old man of the group by like a couple of years. Everyone's like early 30s or late 20s. I was like 33, 34. So I'm like, I'm the old man. What the?
Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? So I wrote The Watchguard, and as I'm writing it and as I'm getting actually pages done, Elmer Santos, who's coloring Wildcats right now. So Elmer was an unknown at the time. A young kid named Sean Isaacs that nobody has heard of, right? Who's only doing Green Arrow right now with Joshua Middleton. These guys weren't even found yet, and I was creating these characters and getting character sheets done and bios, and I was doing all this stuff and creating my little Bible for these characters. And then I realized it's just one night I was like, I just told my wife, I said, who the hell's going to buy this shit? Like, nobody knows these characters. Nobody cares about I have to find people to care about my characters. How do I do that? And so I spent about, I don't know, probably a week or two. I don't remember the timeline, but because I'm old now. But I was working just north of here. And on the lunch break, I swung over to a gaming shop who also sold comics. And I was like, oh, I'll just check the comics rack. Well, while I was in the gaming shop, I looked over and I just happened to start scanning some. I was curious if there's any superhero, RPGs or something. Sure enough, Green Ronin Publishing had Mutants and Masterminds. And they had just released the second edition. And they had a hardcover rule book. And I asked the shop owner, I said, hey, can I crack open the shrink wrap? He's like, no, you got to buy it. I was like, you're a jerk, but okay. So I spent $35, bought this stupid book, sight unseen. I had a cover to go on, and I cracked it open, and I realized I found my audience. Gamers will buy anything gaming related and ancillary to it because it works with what they're already doing. So I created the Watchguard source book, which actually is on Amazon, and accidentally created an award-winning book, which is kind of cool. So I won an Ogre Award. I got nominated for an ENnie, which for those of you who are in gaming, an ENnie is like the Academy Awards of gaming. And so I actually got nominated for an ENnie Award, Rookie of the Year. And
do they have an Audi, and that's like when you've been canceled?
Dude, I love your sense of humor. No. So
not yet.
There it is. There, Dan's got it. Look at that.
Yep.
So thanks, Dan. And so that gave me my audience. And then I went to Kickstarter with the comic book and successfully funded the comic book. And then I just wasn't happy. And I sat on it. It was not well written. I had a lot of issues. I rushed things and whatever. The book looks great, so please buy it from me. Mm-hmm. By all means, look at it. Just don't read it. But we're revisiting those characters maybe in 24. But anyway, that's what got me started. And it wasn't until I was going on American Ninja Warrior that I came up with the Spider Squirrel name, which was my name, or like a handle or whatever you want to call it.
Wait. Go back. So you could be on American Ninja Warrior?
Oh, yeah. American Ninja Warrior season 10.
You can't just drop,
Yes. Yeah, I was on season 10.
Guys, just sit back. This is going to be a long one.
You're good. No, okay. I won't give you the whole long story. Go ahead.
No, you're not going to give it to me now. You were on American Ninja Warrior. We're going to finish with your comic. We're going to drive Daniel's comic. Will's going to sing 3 Tony Bennett songs, and then we're talking behind the scenes of the experience because I got to hear this. So just go. Okay, after you were on American Ninja Warrior with Spider Squirrel name, go.
Yeah. So I created the logo that you see behind me, and I put it on all my gear. So all my training gear had that logo, and I had it on my shirts and stuff like that. And I ended up buying the gym that I was training in, and then of course I went on the show. But while I'm training, I realized, this is going to be a really fun superhero. I would love to do this. I want to do something not serious. I want to have a lot of fun with it. I want to kind of go back to, like I said earlier, the wahaha days where comics are just lighthearted, silly. Maybe they deal with deep things, but they do them in a way that is so not overt, not obtuse, that it's just a part of the story. And so that's when I had the idea to kind of write my life into it. And so in the first issue, actually, he goes around dating. And a lot of the females that show up in there are female characters that show up in there are based on ex-girlfriends of mine. All of them know that, by the way, because I'm still friends with some of them. And my wife is too. So it's kind of fun. Not that way, kids. It's after dark, but not that after dark. Whew. All right, where's Pat Shane? Do you need him?
Is this going to be his next Stevie is just going to be called McElvey?
Yeah, probably. Well, I actually have a character called the Shandman that he knows about that I'm working on. So that'll be eventually, you'll see that one coming. So yeah, anyway, so that's where Spider Squirrel came from. And then I realized I wanted him to be like my Spider-Man. He's ubiquitous. He shows up in just about every book that I publish, some way, shape, or form, a billboard, a backdrop, something, a t-shirt. But I figured that would be the start of my universe. And while he's the start or the center of my universe, if you will, there's a lot more out there, and not all of it's superheroes. So we've got a lot more in store for you.
Oh, that's awesome. That's cool. That's really cool. And so if everything blows up and you have your heart's desire and you can make as many of these books as you can, and you've got teams, how many books would you want in your universe coming out per year?
Well, by the end of next year, I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4. Dan's got a book from me. 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll have a dozen books by the end of next year out there. So
all in the Zion universe, all with 8. I'm guessing it's more like the 80s Marvel DC, where if you read them all, you get a little more, but you don't have to. It's not I'm going to guess because.
Yeah, I mean, we're really not right now. There is an event that I'm building up towards that I alluded to. If you bought the trade paperback, there's a 12-page epilogue that is also a teaser for things to come that has only been in print in the trade paperback. I will reprint that in volume 2, issue 1, which is actually going to be numbered 4, issue 4 of the series. So you don't have to have the trade paperback, but anyway, it first shows up there, and you'll see that there's a lot coming. So I will start teasing things out, but they'll be obvious, they'll be clear. It's not going to be something you have to like, oh, well, go read American Yakuza. What's that? Well, it's a mature audience's book that isn't even out yet. Mm-hmm. You won't need any of that. Does it color at all? Yeah, like if you read Rook, which is coming out later this year. It's a one-shot. Rook will be in the same city that Watchguard's in. So, yeah, absolutely. And Alpha Elite that Dan wrote takes place in Richmond, which is the same place these guys are. So, So yeah, there is like background, but it won't matter if you don't read any of it. And you won't get that much fuller picture if you read all of them, because I really want the books to stand on their own. I don't need them to be buoyed up by somebody else.
No, that's cool. All right. Well, you said Rook. Dan works in your thing. Let's get to Rook and Knight, and we're gonna hop over. I'm gonna pull up the page, Dan, and kind of the same question about your universe. Now, I know that you said this comes out of American Dreams, so
Well,
I
it's
know that these.
kind of connected. I try to make it like a try as you don't have to read American Dreams but it helps.
So, but what I want to pop in is, so where did Rook and Knight come into as you were bringing this whole universe together? How did this idea come to you as I pull up?
So I was working on a different idea to do more modern stuff because Nightcraft started off me going, there should be more modern day stuff. Eventually I was going to do more modern day stuff anyways. So I was writing another story to try to be this kind of quasi event and introduce some characters I was writing to create. And I created these two characters called Rook and Knight, the father and son. And I'm writing this and go, no, not this story. It wasn't the right story. It was slightly too bleak, and it was maybe too much too fast. So I scaled it back, and I did more about them, though I am more teasing about the world in general around them with appearances by new characters, appearances by old characters. There'll be some oblique mentions to things, so we could go, aha, here's a little connection here and there. And as the issue, it's gonna be like a 3 or 4 issue series, so it's gonna be like you'll see more connections as time goes by. I'm trying to make it as accessible as possible to newcomers.
Who did your different covers? Because you got some gorgeous covers.
I think they have they have it under the each one. So the main cover is by the Bags Brothers, who are also our art team on the book. Cover B is by Vasco
Giochini.
Giochini, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Sally Lockhart did our cover C.
Yeah, this one is just incredible.
I love that one. That's the one I picked as well.
It's gorgeous. So
Nice.
Have you worked with your interior artists before, or is this your first time working with
It
them?
was my first time working with them. They actually came to me and they're like, hey, do you have a project for us? I'm like, let me think. And then so I went back for my notes. I'm like, okay, here's this old story I started. And there's parts of it I liked, parts that I didn't like. Let me take the parts I like, start something fresh and new.
Do you know, does one pencil and the other color, or do they?
What? I forget which is which, but one pencils and inks and one of the others is the colorist.
Okay.
Cool.
Dan, I got to ask you, because you know how much I love Night Wrath. Will I enjoy this as much as Night Wrath?
I think you might, because this is slightly darker, slightly more mature, well, having some of a balance. It's grittier, it's street level. And as you see the preview pages, it can get a little brutal. Because, street level vigilantes. But the dad's on taking drugs. The kid's having trouble in school because he's seeing these kids getting bullied. He's like, don't do it. And then he gets pulled into it because he's a good kid. You don't see it, but this will have consequences starting in issue 2. Because, well, you'll see. I can't say much more without spoiling an issue that's not even drawn yet.
You had artists that can do this come to you and just say, hey, do you have work for us? This is incredible.
Yeah, it's happened more than once. I'm like, and I always like, sometimes I say yes, sometimes I say not at the moment because I work with other people. But every so often I'm like, yes.
Yeah, no, if artists like this come to you, you have to find something. You have to find a way to hitch your wagon to some rising stars. It's just got so much energy and pop.
Yeah. And that's also part of the problem. Well, probably Night Wrath 2 is being delayed, and we had to get a new artist for that because he was like, I'll come back from this, Wesley Snipes book. I have plenty of time to do so. Cut to a few weeks later. Hey, we need a fill-in. And we have found one, but it's going to take a little while for.
You're telling me Wesley Snipes has more power than you and
money, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't pay taxes, you'd have more money too.
Oh.
Hey, if he can joke about it, I can too.
Yeah.
I love him. As Wesley Snipes says, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably isn't.
So, like this is the first issue of many to come. 3 or 4 is that going to be the okay.
Yeah, I think American Dreams will be like the long running series, and if other things get really popular, they make extend it to a couple other arcs. I know I want to do. Gabe and I talked about doing a couple arcs more for Night Wrath, but American Dreams, I have arc 2 mostly written and outlined, and 2 of them drawn, and I'm rethinking the third arc that I already was going to make arc 2, which is now arc 3, and now that arc 3 might be changed altogether, it's just keeping some things here and some things there. To again try to, instead of being this story I originally wrote, am I expanded to be more expansion of this universe? So it's back in the 1900s era.
You just did what was it, a hardcover for American Dreams?
The trade paperback and the hardcover, but because Band of Bards picked up American Dreams.
Oh, cool.
I just printed enough for it to fulfill, orders. And I have to talk to Band of Bards about this. We can have a meeting and conflicts keep coming up. It's like we hate to put this to you again, but we are planning a new trade paperback for, I guess, hopefully end of the year, beginning of the next. I have to get more details from them, to be honest.
Yeah, I saw your latest issue in previews this month, Dan.
Yeah,
so kudos.
At the end of the month, it comes out next week.
Yep.
Yeah, congrats.
Double-sized grand finale of the first season.
And that's out of Band of Bards?
It's out of Band of Bards. That is our double-sized issue 4. So if you are keeping track of the original series, that would be the combined of 4 and 5.
Okay. Awesome.
Cool.
Joey Galvez in the chat says that Rook and Knight is Grayson Batman, Damian Robin if Batman broke his one rule, which apparently
Rook is more Bruce if Bruce had even less control over his own anger issue.
I was gonna say more than one rule, because didn't you say he's a drug addict? So I think he's got more than one rule that maybe Bruce doesn't.
But there's also some.
He's like the Roy Harper of Batman's,
Well, yeah, there's a man pain. But you find out why in issue 2, and there's, as someone points out, there's a certain time. It's been X number of years since a certain defining event, which is kind of making him go back into that. Plus, the kid's growing up, so it's like psychological pressure on already somewhat unstable individual.
So when you're putting this book together, do you start with that event that would break somebody and see where it's going, or do you go like, I've got a father and son that I really want to tell this story about, and I want the father to be going through some stuff, and then you work backwards. So where do you come up with how do you come up with these things?
Well, in this case, I'm going to look at the father-son relationship, and also like it would be interesting if it would be more of a falling apart than coming back together, and everything after that is little things like, oh, if we do this, what if we do that? And it's like finding those little angles as I go along. I'm mainly a bit of a, depends on the book. I can be a planner. I can be a pantser. This was more of a pantser.
Okay.
To be quite honest. There's another book like
there's something to that though.
Yeah, there's like things where I'm like outlining these detailed outlines and notes, and then I have it with a great idea and just I have to get this down ASAP before I forget.
One of Will and my's friends, Comic Uno, Kat Calamia, her book, like
I
father,
love
like
Kat.
daughter.
Yeah, Kat was the first person I ever tabled with at a comic book convention.
Oh, that
nice.
Must have been a fun weekend. So,
yeah.
She's wonderful.
But hearing about the father-son dynamic reminds me of that book, and there's so much interesting content that you can go in the superhero when you have these generations of people, because they're fighting the people out here, but they're also pushing and pulling between each other.
Exactly.
That has to be fun.
Exactly, and we're going to see definitely this is the we have to splinter, then ultimately come back together. So with that journey of how together, I got some fun stuff planned for issues 3 and 4, or issue 3. It could be a little exercise. I'm trying to figure out, and it's going to, of course, connect to things back to American Dreams and things that haven't been in the comic yet, but things we'll hint at, because, of course, there's always some people in the background, good and bad, that will be familiar faces.
Dan, just a curiosity, are you in American Dreams, as you do subsequent issues going forward, are you thinking to do some like time capsules. Do you know what I mean by that? Like dropping little, because this is the 1900s, right? So you're talking like early, and dropping little dimes in American Dreams that may show up in Rook and Knight, or vice versa, because that would be fun too, where you have something in Rook and Knight that you go back to. I was just curious.
There's a line. There's this thing later on in issue of Night Ref I've written, but hasn't been drawn yet because it's.
Oh wait! Spoiler alert, people. Okay, good.
I was going to mention a hero that a costumed hero that will appear in American Dreams eventually, and his ultimate fate. But that here, and I will note that because it's not been released yet, I did a short with Ben Bart's permission for an anthology about American Dreams about team ups, which shows some of the heroes are coming, and that hero is among them.
Cool. No, that's good stuff, man.
So if you ordered that Unknown Heroes Volume 2 anthology, you might get a sneak peek of what's coming down the pike.
Cool.
And honestly, order anything Bandit Bards because they're just great people over there.
There's Bandit Bards, but they just gave me permission to do the anthology short.
Oh, I don't give a crap about that anthology. They're not Bandit Bards. They're dead to me. Do not buy that anthology.
Actually, do buy that anthology because Bandit Bards, because we do want to.
Bandit Bards will benefit from it somehow. There you go.
Somehow. Okay. Well, right. Yeah.
It's funny. And you brought up.
If I can do this, he's like, yeah, sure, go ahead.
It's funny you brought up Kat. So, Kevin, because now you're mentioning two people who actually have stories in the Spider Squirrel Titan Size Annual. Because Dan over here has a story, which Dan, by the way, I just sent it off to Vasco to get colored, by the way. How coincidental is that, right? He reached out to me and I was like, dude, all I have is color work, but I need color work. And he's like, I'll do it. So, and then Kat is actually writing a wonderful, she wrote a wonderful kind of a slice of life, as she does. It's a superhero story that takes place at a funeral. Really, really good. You'll enjoy it. So anyway, I just thought it was great that you brought that up.
That's awesome. And you know what Slice of Life funded last night, the night before. So congratulations, Kat and Val. John Westhoff's Drumsticks of Doom funded 2 days ago too. So always exciting to have friends kicking ass and taking Kickstarter
and
names.
Jared Luhan's book funded last night too.
Which one was this?
Southbound by Jared Luhan.
Southbound, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. We had them on for what was the Demon in the Head one?
I know this one. I have it in my room.
It was very good. It's very good.
Yeah, I've got it. I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm blanking on names, but it was good. So congratulations, Jared.
I'm gonna scroll. Just had an email
Twin
about
Blades.
The
head. Yeah.
It's great because it's an exorcist inside a man's head.
All the devils are here.
That's it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that was a very, very good comic. So, guys, check out both of these campaigns. Now, Will, I do apologize. I know you wanted to sing. But I think because we only have Charlie on this week, we're going to have to push the Tony Bennett songs to next week. Okay.
It breaks my heart, man.
All right. I have to because this is... I've never met anybody who even sniffed something like a Ninja Warrior, American Ninja Warrior, Wipeout. So, all right, what makes you crazy enough to think I want to do that? What in your background made you think this is something you could do? Because I'm completely ignorant. I don't know if you did well. I don't know if you won the damn thing. So I'm coming in totally ignorant here. So what made you think, F it, I'm going to do this crazy thing?
So the short version of a fairly long story. In 2013, I had been playing competitive flag football for 2 seasons. We won both our division championship both seasons, and we were kicking ass and loving it. My quarterback, one day he was like, "Hey, you want to do a Tough Mudder?" I was like, "I don't even know what that is, but whatever." And so I signed up. I had no idea what I was getting into, and we were down in Richmond, Virginia. And a hurricane came through and it washed out the course. And so here I am at 6 a.m. watching these alerts coming through while I'm in a hotel, and the event was canceled. I was like, mother trucker. And I know it's comic
it would have been, they canceled a Tough Mudder when it could have been the toughest Muddest.
That's what I said. But apparently, because something about having to get emergency vehicles to obstacles matters to some people who actually want to live.
Maybe,
So,
all right, fine.
so I sat in my hotel room pissed off, and I Googled, mud run near me, and Spartan Race showed up, and it happened to be 2 miles from my house. Spartan Race was hosting a free workout at a gym. So I met a friend, John, who actually is now a character in my universe. You'll meet Hate actually, Travis Hill should be writing that story for next year. So you'll meet Hate next year. Yeah. So I met my friend John, and I worked out, and it was crazy. I went to this Spartan workout. We worked out for like 4 hours. I burned like 9,700 some ridiculous calories. And I was like, I'm going from fat guy to fit guy. Here we go. And I went home and immediately signed up for a Spartan race that was like 6 weeks from that date.
That's not enough time for a Spartan, is it?
Oh, it really isn't. But
Okay.
I finished it, and it was the first finish was the most primal thing. I told my wife, I described it to her this way, because she said, how did it feel? She wasn't there. We had little kids at the time. And I said, it was primal. I said, I wanted to hug the first person I came across. I wanted to punch the first person I came across. I wanted to kiss the first person I came across. I wanted to bite their face off. It was just this guttural kind of, thing. And I'm not some kind of testosterone freak, but I loved that event, and I did another and another and another. And before you know it, in 2014 or 2015, I forget, I ended up doing over 100 of these events. I ended up in Men's Health magazine, sponsored by Premier Protein. I did a commercial for them. You can Google it. It's on YouTube. Just type in Premier Protein Charlie fan. You'll find it. There's a 16-second version and a 30-second version. It's absolutely stupid. But you see my kids, so it's really cool.
I have time to watch one or the other.
Do the 30-second and just enjoy it, but that was cool, because they actually, when they were going to fly me out to LA, and the director said, you have how many kids? And I said, oh yeah, we have 7. And it was like, we're coming to you. And so they flew the whole film crew out here, and then they got a bunch of local hires and stuff, and filmed it at my house and in my neighborhood and at the running trails I go to. So fast forward, I had been at this point, I had been a 5-time competitor at the World Championships. So I've been to Canada a few times, they had it in the US, a couple other places. And so I was a perennial pro here doing this stuff, and I was sponsored. And then I decided I needed to find some place to train in the winter, because there was no events in the winter. There's no gyms to train at. I didn't know how to train in the winter other than just go running some snowy hills. Mm-hmm. And I found a parkour. Rocky? What's that?
It worked for Rocky and Rocky 4.
Yeah, I could do that, right? Go to Russia or something.
You do the sit-ups on the top of the warehouse?
I found a parkour gym near me, and so I started training there, and I got good at parkour, and I realized it was something I was really naturally good at. And I took first place at their first ninja competition. I go, hey, I'm actually good at this. And so that's what happened. And I just kind of 2 years later decided to go on. I applied for the show, and they were like, we want you. Let's go. That's it. I mean, that was the whole story.
No, that's not the whole story. So that's how you applied. Okay. So they said come out. You fly out, you go. Do you get to see the course like the day before, or do you just go out like the day you shoot it, you see what you have to do?
So you want behind the scenes information. So
I want everything.
Yeah. So how it works is they recommend you come down to the event area almost a week in advance, and they don't demand it. You can come in the day before; they don't care, but they're suggesting it. And the reason is because it used to be when I was doing the show, they film overnight, and the reason they film overnight, outdoors overnight, is because they can control the lighting. You can't control the sun, and they certainly can't control the rain, which actually affected us in Miami. Mm. But so I get down to Miami with my family. We drove down 21 hours. Good God. Stayed there for about 5-6 days. We weren't allowed to visit or see the course, and it wasn't even completely built until about 2 days beforehand. And even then, you can only see it from like the outskirts. So it was pretty well, good secret basically. And you couldn't touch the course. If you got in and accidentally, did something on the course, you were automatically disqualified. The morning of the night filming, they have you come out and they walk the course and they tell you the rules, and they have somebody demonstrate every single obstacle. So they have a whole crew called ATS who actually builds the course, and they have Jen and one of the, I forget the dude's name, she and one other guy will actually demonstrate the obstacles for you, and then you could ask questions, and sometimes the questions will lead to like rule changes on the fly, which is kind of cool too. And a couple of them did change that way that night or morning rather. So that's it. That you can't touch it until then, and then you just got to dream about it the rest of the day, and then you got to be up at you got to be there on site and check in by 8 p.m. and you may not run until 6 a.m. Suck it up, Buttercup. That's what we had to do, and so yeah, I mean that's so my family. Yeah,
that's course number 1 is
right. That's the qualifier.
If you get through, is it the next night?
It's the very next night. So in the show for fans, you see like Miami episode 1, and then 6 weeks later you see Miami episode 2. Well, those are back to back film, night after night. So only top 30 advance. We had 109 competitors. I got 33rd. So I missed it by, would you believe, that much? And for those of you who get that reference, and so yeah, thank you.
No Brooks fan.
And by the way, I stayed up until 6 a.m. to find out that I got disqualified. I watched and I kept going over to I forget her name now, but she was one of the associate producers, and she had the rankings, and I was like, where am I at? And she goes, oh, you're fine. You're like number 17. I was like, okay, great. And I kept bugging her, that poor girl. She was super sweet. And then
you actually still stayed 19th, but you annoyed her enough that you became 33rd.
Well, that's what happened, probably. I kept watching myself tick down and then I said, who's left? Because I was at number 28 or 29. I forget when I asked her, and Jennifer. And Jennifer goes, you're whatever my number was at the time. And I go, okay, who's left? And she goes, oh, Brett. And I said, shit, Brett Sims. For those of you who don't know. And Ryan Stratus, like, oh God, Strat and Brett, I'm fucked, and so, and I don't, the show, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know, what you see on the show is pretty darn real. Like, we literally cheer each other on constantly. Jessie Graff, who has been in Wonder Woman 2, she's been a stunt woman for Supergirl, she's super awesome. The face of Ninja Warrior, she is backstage cheering every competitor on. I kid you not, that's Jessie, 100%. And so we all cheer each other on. So I couldn't root for Strat or Brett to fall.
Right.
For Brett Sims, but Brett fell on obstacle 2, and I was like, oh, I'm in. Oh my God, I'm in. And it turns out that the obstacle broke, and so Brett got a redo, and I was like, God bless him. Wow,
I'm really happy for Brett. So happy for him.
So anyway, I came 33rd out of 109. That's incredible. It was a blast. Yeah, it was so much fun. And I was one of the oldest competitors, by the way. I was there was only one other competitor in that grouping that was older than me. So because I was in my 40s.
So Dan, that's like way in your future, but so you bring up like you all cheering for each other. So I basically watched the original Ninja Warrior on an old show, G4 channel that doesn't exist anymore. But we kind of like ran across it, and what I loved about it is the first course, the preliminaries. You've got some serious competitors like you, and you said Brett, and like these people who are there to really beat it, and then you got some goofballs like if I joined the course, like literally dressed up like
clown
Superman.
Costume on it.
Yeah, and just gonna like F it, I'm gonna fall on the first or second obstacle, who cares? And so the first like 10 minutes of the show, you're kind of laughing at most of the people, and by the second, third, and fourth, every time someone falls, you die with them.
Yeah,
you're no longer rooting against anyone. You're just with everybody, and it's the only like reality / sports / competitive show I've ever seen where you're always rooting for everyone once you get into kind of the deep. And I remember the one guy on G4, my wife and I still like kind of sadly laugh. Like he lost his family because he couldn't quit trying to defeat Mount Fuji. Was that the original?
Mount Midoriyama.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it's like we're like, oh, like when the family's going to leave you, it's time to give up the sport. But he's like, no. But we also love the gas station attendant guy who just like climbed around his gas station to get ready. So I'm proud to have spoken to somebody who did it. I think 33rd is something that you should be proud of for the rest of your life. I mean, I know that
totally.
You sound like you've won other athletic things, but that's pretty incredible.
It's fun. And the best part for me was my whole family was there. They had me run early enough that most of my kids were still awake.
Okay.
And I got to make some really good friends. So like, Captain NBC, the green haired guy, Jamie Ron is a family friend. He spent the night at our house. He's hung out in the backyard with us. He's, whatever. And then Maggie Thorne's another one. She has a pink bow in her hair. I love Maggie to pieces. So Maggie, Jamie, if you happen to be watching, I love you guys.
Yeah. They're usually here. I don't see them in the chat.
I don't know why they're not in the chat. I don't know what's up there. Something about comic books, I guess. But it was a really cool experience. I'm very fortunate. The things I've been through, I feel like my life has been very touched. So I've enjoyed it. I don't take any of it for granted. So I like this Kickstarter. I don't, all 170 backers or whatever. I love every one of you. Thank you. I don't take you for granted.
Yeah. So,
well, Kevin, you just mentioned something that, I mean, you said it was like, everybody's rooting for everybody.
That's indie comics.
That's indie comics. Yeah, that's totally the indie comics scene. I mean, we all want each other to succeed because, I mean, it sounds trite, but a rising tide really does lift all the boats. The better that you do, the better that Daniel does, the better that Kevin does, is the better that we all do. I mean,
I've backed every crossover division possible, so I think you know that well.
It's just great. I mean, that because the indie comic community is so supportive, and it gives all of us a chance to do the stuff that we want. I mean, look at Kat and Phil are doing the books that they want to do, and Kickstarter's better for it, and indie comics are better for it. I mean, it's just it's a wonderfully supportive community. It really is.
It is.
Yeah, and I think that it's you don't even have to do it because it's altruistic of yourself. Because I call it greedy giving. Doing stuff like this, it is good for you. I'm not saying you have to back every campaign. There are too many campaigns to back everybody.
Fact.
A retweet, a share on Facebook, or just however you let somebody know is great, and it's awesome. But Will and I started this show during our Kickstarter campaigns, and his campaign ended before mine. And I said, well, I'm going to do it next week. He goes, I'll be back. And so I had like 2 more shows where I was live, and I just talked to him afterwards. I was like, that's kind of fun. Do you want to just keep doing it even though we don't have campaigns? He's like, let's do it. And, not every Friday, but most Friday nights we get to come on here and talk. Like, I hadn't met either of you two before, and it's been fabulous and a lot of fun. And it's kind of like, this is great. And we get to help each other, and we get to, succeed with each other. And,
absolutely.
It's I feel like I won Ninja Warrior. I do.
No, honestly, and there's a saying on Ninja Warrior: when you have complete victory, it's Japanese. It's kanzen seiha. So you have that with this. I think I'm envious that you guys can do this every week. You meet some great people. We talked about Charlie Stickney earlier.
He's okay.
By the way, Kat has officially dubbed me. If you haven't watched her latest YouTube, I'm the other Charlie.
Okay.
So in fact, I probably should change my name here, shouldn't I? So
no. It's on this show. You're fine because that Charlie is just that guy.
We just call him that
that's
guy.
Funny. It was really sweet of him to bring me up last week. Yeah.
He comes up enough. He doesn't need a name. No, our rule is all Charlies are invited. We made that rule after Manson died because although he would have been a great guest. That man knew how to do TV.
That's for sure. You're not wrong about that. I do want to bolster what you guys were saying about indie comics, though. Will and Kevin both is, I get into this and I have guys like Charlie Stickney, Pat Shand, who don't treat me like anything less than an equal. They're not condescending. They're educational. They're embracing. They back and support a lot of. Both of them support every since we've known each other, every project I've done. And it really is a great community. So for those of you watching, indie comics is beautiful. Comics are not dying. In fact, by the way, mainstream comics aren't even dying. I just saw a thing today that since James Gunn came on board with DC, that Dan shared it and I shared it and a couple other people shared it too on my feed. They're tripling their numbers, including books like The Authority, which wasn't even in print when Gunn was announced about the movie, or when the movie was announced. So, comics is a great medium. Get in and embrace this and embrace each other, and don't think you're an island to yourself. You're not. You have so much community around you. These guys they're all part of my tribe, right? So anyway, that's my soapbox. I'll shut up.
No, that's it. We will stand with you in the marketplace and either echo you or just get out of the way, because that's what it's all about. We're here to just. Like, we're all here to tell our stories and read each other's stories and just, find our audience. And if 5 of the people that read my books read Will's, that's awesome. And if 5 of Will's read mine, it's awesome. And you guys, whatever you guys can cross over and just bring more, because what I've always said is I never went into a comic shop because I loved Batman and X-Men. And when there was an amazing Fantastic Four or Avengers cover, went, no, I'm here for Batman and X-Men. I went, and I added that third book. And that's what it is with the Kickstarters. It's not a zero-sum game. We're all just trying to build the addiction as much as we can.
Yeah, 100%. So no, I love that, and it's funny you said that, because this week I went in and I was like, I'm just gonna get stuff in my box, and I was like, well, I'll scan the aisle, and yes, I bought a metric crap ton of books. I got Proposes, Moon Knight, City of the Dead. Yes, nice. That's a Marvel book. Most of my books are David. You gotta, dude. It was great too. I didn't even tag him in my post, and he jumps on and goes, "Thanks for buying it." And I'm like, "Okay, you're welcome."
Man, if you want to learn how to market, just watch David, because he is as brilliant at marketing as he is at writing. But what's great is he's good at both. It's not just kind of like a carnival barker.
Yeah, he seems like a super cool dude.
Yeah, he's like a chef with a great restaurant, but the food is awesome.
Uh-huh. Speaking of which, after this, I'm gonna go back watching The Chef. The Bear, because that show is. Well, look, I'm late, okay, but I was like, okay, I resisted it, and then I finally watched like episode 1 last night, and so I watched 2 and 3 today, and I'm gonna watch 4 after this show, because it's like, it's so damn good.
You're faster than me, because all I know is that it exists.
Yeah, me too. I haven't seen it.
I have a TV, film, comics backlog a mile long, so. Slowly taking my way out of that.
You have a whole lifetime to catch up, you young little.
Yes.
Well, I'm trying also. I have 2 episodes now of My Adventures of Superman to get through. What's that gonna take long? It's gonna take less than an hour.
You can get into it.
Totally froze.
All right.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did. Hopefully he gets back, because I think we're gonna let you guys get to Superman and the Bear, and I'm going to fill up my tea, and I'm going to read a little bit of Dave Grohl, Storyteller, and I'm going to go to bed myself. Gentlemen, loved having you. Loved meeting you. Charlie, I see you back.
Sorry.
Yes, that's okay. We were actually saying goodnight, but I'm happy you're here, so you don't just show back up and we're all gone like a reverse surprise party.
Yeah.
So the power went out.
No, really? Wow.
I am sorry about that. My power totally went out. I was like, what the heck? And so I ran upstairs. I had to make sure my kids are all good. So, because I don't want them panicking. My 16-year-old son's on his phone going, "Yeah, I'm good."
And your siblings?
Reminds me of when the blackout in 2005, 2006 happened. Well, it was early 2000s happened here in New York and Northeast. So we had rented Clue from Blockbuster. We were watching it on Now we had our fuse blew in the house like a week or two prior, so we thought, oh, the fuse blew again somehow. It was like middle of summer, so this happens. And my mom's like, oh, I'm gonna go get a fuse from the hardware store. I'll be back in 5 seconds. She leaves the house, sees that all the traffic lights are off. Comes back in the house, like, I don't think it's just the house.
I actually, all right, we were going to close it down, but I actually lived in New York City during that blackout. And I was bartending on 109th in Amsterdam. It's a restaurant that's closed now, probably because I don't work there anymore, called the Amsterdam Cafe. I loved it to death. So we lose power, just like you it's New York City. You lose power sometimes. So we find out it's citywide. All right, well, that's weird. That's a lot. And someone tells me the power's out from here to Albany. I went over to, because there wasn't cell service, or it was very bad. I went over to the payphone. I dialed collect. I called my mom and I said, hey, Mom, I just want you to know that the power is out from Manhattan to Albany. And the only way I can think of that happening is if there's either a nuclear meltdown or a attack of some kind. And this is after 9/11, that we'd all lived through. I said, I don't know what's going to happen, but I love you. Because I literally thought that was at 3 Mile Islands, a couple miles north of
Indian
Manhattan.
Point.
I thought,
no, it doesn't work anymore. Because my dad is the lawyer for utility workers, and they shut down Indian Point.
okay, so I literally thought there might be a nuclear meltdown when I found out, because I didn't know that there could be too much heat in Cleveland and something got tripped, and then the entire Northeast could lose power. I didn't know that could happen, which is what happened.
There's only 5.
In your defense, I don't think anybody did. Yeah.
My dad had to walk from Chelsea back here to Flatbush. That's
Jesus.
a little bit and a half. And our borough president, Marty Markowitz, so they're sitting on the Brooklyn end of the Brooklyn Bridge going, welcome home. The borough hall's open for cold drinks and for phone calls. Somehow my dad's, one of my dad's kind of co-workers, Ruthie, somehow managed to get a hold of me, my mom, managed to get a hold of him, managed to get a hold of my mom. And we were kind of playing telephone with her because she's all the way in Las Vegas. Yeah. So it's like...
It was neat. It was so neat to walk around because you're going past the little bodegas and they're just handing out ice cream because it's going to melt anyway. So they just give you a little like thing. And I went home. I took a ice cold shower because there was no hot water left. Changed. Went back to the bar. Bartended all night by candlelight. We only allowed people we knew in, so we were like a speakeasy. And just kind of wrote down what people drank. No cash, no cards, just like you're a regular. You had 8 beers. It was a great night bartending. Once I knew I wasn't gonna die of radioactive poisoning, it was a great night. And
I mean, it could always have been worse. It could have been like the 70s.
And I at least get superpowers from this.
Donate blackout.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't see any. There was nothing and I really didn't hear of anything of any violence, any fighting, any nothing. It was like the whole city was just we're in this together. It was neat.
Because my parents immediately went, oh no, what if this is like the 70-something blackout? Because they lived through that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. My dad, remember, she was really at a movie theater, I guess I think he was watching like an old film at one of those, kind of theaters.
A porno film, yeah.
No.
New York in the 70s, there wasn't a movie theater that wasn't porno. Come on.
And the movie goes, and I think it's just the movie theater goes out, and the guy here for the director is like, the entire city's out. But then somehow got back to his apartment. I think it was in Chelsea, of course, in Chelsea, so he had to walk all the way back there. This was like not the good old days. My favorite story of of that blackout is that Superman the movie was filming at the Daily News building.
Okay.
They had generators.
In the 70s.
Yeah, this is 77.
Okay, gotcha.
77, 78. So the film crew had generators. They lent them to the Daily News. So the only newspaper which actually had a next morning paper out was the Daily News. Don't Forget Superman the movie was filming in
because of the Daily Planet,
Planet.
basically. Wow, that's neat. Awesome. Well,
Very
we
cool.
can't beat that for a way to get out of here. So, gentlemen, it was great to meet you. And next time you have a campaign, just reach out. And as long as Will and I are still doing this, which, you know, we as long as we're young enough to stay up this late, which could be ending next week, could be ending in 2026, we don't know. We'd love to have you on.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks,
Well,
guys.
Dan will
Thanks,
still
everyone.
be young enough to get back on, so you're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dan might have to take over the show. So
Yeah.
you might inherit it when Will and I pass away. Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.